One of the principles that we apply in a practice of yoga is this principle of looking inwards. It's described as a self-reflective practice. But it also recognizes that the world exists within us as much as the world exists around us. And the world within is the world where we either find stability or turmoil, and that reconciling that world has as much to do with your intention to act as with any specific act. So intent within a practice of yoga is a significant question. In Iyengar's commentary on the sutras, he says that all actions are motivated. And this comes from Indian thought. It's not just Iyengar. All actions are motivated. All actions carry within them reasons. They don't always need to make sense. For example, I always use eating. You look at someone eat and you say they eat because they are hungry. And yet in reality, we all know sometimes we eat because of time, a time in the day. We eat sometimes because we're bored. We eat to be social. And sometimes we eat so that we won't be hungry later. We eat for many reasons. All actions are motivated. And the outcome of those actions, their effects on our inner world, relate to those actions and those motivations. And so one of the impacts of that recognition is that we should observe why and how we apply ourselves within the asanas, not just how well we apply ourselves. And it exists, it starts right here. You might say in lying back in Virasana, Supta Virasana or Supta Baddha Konasana, that you're not motivated at all. You might say that you're just lying here, waiting for the class. But even this action is motivated. You have some sense of what the asana will do, some expectation. Do you ever put down your expectations? Do you ever become simple? We all at some point, those of us who practice, we all will experience an example of where you've put energy and effort and applied yourself and you've progressed with a certain asana, only to find that your expectation moves further. An example of that would be full arm balance. The first time you go up into full arm balance, you're so pleased you can do it. And maybe you've never done full arm balance as a child. And here you are, your first one. But quickly that passes. And then you want to see if you can balance. And now, as you find the challenge of balancing more demanding, simply doing full arm balance is not enough. Our expectations move. And you can become dissatisfied with your full arm balance because you're not balancing. Part of practice is not so much resolving that, or fixing it, or removing it, is seeing it and seeing its effects. And it's in every asana. And if you go on practicing, you will need to acknowledge, to recognize that quality, your expectations. Hopes and fears, these exist. But your expectations, your sense of measure. I expect this, and yet in any practice, on any day, I might find something else. So come up, go forward in Virasana. You come to kneeling. Step up to Uttanasana. Part of what we do in our practice is we define. And when we define, we measure ourselves against those definitions. And that very act, creating a definition, performing the asana, evaluating, this creates a sense of either pleasure, you're doing well, you're able to do the asana, or you're not. I stretch my legs, as you do. And it either feels pleasant or unpleasant to me, not in the tissue, but partially based on yesterday, on what I do every day. All actions are motivated. They carry within them expectation and not just hopes and fears, but this measure. Now to dog pose. It exists subtly. I do dog pose, and then I push a little more. I test out the legs. And the feedback I get when I test the legs, whether they are straight, whether I can lift the hips more, the feedback I get is physical. But that sense of measure, of what I expect will happen, also sits there. And maybe I experience my legs as slightly unpleasant today. And is that really in the tissue, or is that in the expectation? And so often I use this phrase to hold the taste upon the tongue. If something is unpleasant, neither pull away or push further, but just stay with it. Hold the taste. Is unpleasant in the tissue? Is it in the legs? Is it in the arms? Where does unpleasant exist? Now, for Prasarita Padottanasana, step 1 foot forward, feet parallel, hands down, head up, concave. Then, if menstruating, hands forward, but otherwise bend the elbows, step the hands back, take the head down. Concave. Then back to dog pose. Now bend your knees to the mat, lie on your back. Now we're going to have, I'll call it as 2 groups, but then there's also the alternate. Now, one group doing bent leg jatara, 10 times on each side. The other group doing Padmasana. So if you can place your legs in Padmasana, do so. Now, those not doing the leg lifts, you can join us in Padmasana or do Supta Swastikasana. So if I place my legs to Padma, I place right foot in first. Now, those who do bent leg jatara, 10 times on each side. Those of us doing Padmasana, take your right knee to the side and hold your left knee with your right hand and left arm outstretched. So I'm lying down, if I describe it as knees to the vertical, but then swivel to the right. So those who do bent leg jatara, 10 times on each side. And each time you move, you take the knees to the side, you hold a moment. Keep the lower knee into the upper. Now, those of us in Padma, we go to the second side, we shift the knees to the left, or left knee to the mat, right arm outstretched. I keep my left arm straight, holding the right knee at arm's length, and I revolve the chest toward the right so that the center of the sternum faces the ceiling. Those of us in Padma, bring your knees back to the center. Now, if I place my hands upon my knees, move the head of the thigh away. Now I lengthen the knees away as I take the arms over the head. And if you can touch your hands to the floor, do so. You do 10 times. I lift the knees, place the hands on the knees, arms straight. I take the arms over as I lengthen the knees away. 10 times. Now, those who are doing bent leg jatara, when you finish 10 times on each side, you do 40 times in Urdhva Prasarita Padasana. Now, it is possible for those lifting and lowering the knees to put a bolster or blocks beyond your hips so you can touch the blocks. Those of us having done so 10 times in the Padma, change the cross of your legs. You place the left foot in first, right leg to follow. Take your right knee to the mat, right hand to left knee, and left arm outstretched. All action is motivated. All actions contain content. Maybe you get fearful in Padmasana. Maybe you get ambitious. Change that group. So as I move my knees to the left hand to right knee, right arm outstretched. Turn your chest toward the right so that your sternum faces the ceiling. Then come back, hands to the knees, move the head of the thigh away. Then exhale, arms over the head as you lengthen the knees, 10 times. So both groups, when you've finished, you go back to dog pose. Now we go to full arm balance. Those in the room with me, you can use the grill Find a wall. You can move the back benders if you wish. If you're not doing inversions, I'd say do dog pose in the ropes. And oftentimes I give you this visual. If I swing a door open, I can put a belt, loop it over one door handle, and then around and over the other, so that as I pull out from the end of the door, I can use this belt across the top of the thighs. Now, we do a minute in full arm balance. And as I so often do, I use a belt, not to keep my elbows straight, but to work or stabilize the shoulder girdle. Place your hands. You lean into the palms, then exhale to go up. And then to Uttanasana. Shortly we'll go again. We won't do a minute, but we'll do one of the hand variations. The first hand variation is where your fingers point toward the wall. The second, your fingers turn away from one another. So fingers facing out to the sides. The moment you add in the hand variations, it questions the stability of your shoulders. Most people, they turn the hands and suddenly they feel very unstable. So gaining clarity through the shoulder girdle, shoulder blades toward the waist, pushing with the hands to lift the ribs into the shoulder blades. So you firm the shoulder blades into the body. So I turn my fingers to the side, spread from little finger to the thumb, lean into the palms, then raise one leg and exhale to go up. Again, keep your head lifted. When your head is up, you can work your shoulder blades both away from the ears and then push the floor and stretch your legs. So lift the trunk. And then exhale to come down. If you're unclear about your kick, the moment you do hand variations, you feel less stable. So you have to define, get clear in your kick. You have to lessen the kick and increase the lift. So let's go next stage, third hand variation, fingers facing one another. So I widen my belt just slightly. I turn the fingers to face in, middle finger facing its opposite, and then move the shoulders, spread the shoulder tips and move the shoulder blades toward your waist. Having the belt on means that the elbows are straight, but more significantly, now I can activate the shoulder girdle. Then again, raise the knees, walk in, and again, raise one leg, kick up. and then down. Now, set up for Pinchamarasana. Whether you're in the balance, close to the wall, or using the wall. But I think it was as recent as last week, can't remember whether it was this class, I was making the comment that beginners, I get them to do dog pose and then what I call straight arm chaturanga. They come over the hands, arms, legs straight, shoulders above the wrists, straight arm. And I get them to move the shoulders down and into the body. Then when you can do that, then I'll get you to do Vashisthasana. Can you bear the weight of the body on one arm and activate the shoulder girdle? Then I'll teach you Chaturanga Dandasana, shoulder tips away from the floor and shoulder blades toward the waist. Those isolations lead you to full arm balance. They lead you to hand variations in full arm balance. They lead you to Pinchamarasana and hand variations, and then they lead you to Shirsasana and hand variations. So if somebody wants to work on hand variations in Shirsasana, I usually get them to move down that pathway or krama. Set up, place your equipment, palms facing down. So we'll do twice, 2 hand variations. So here, palms down, and I use a block base to spread the hands, but more importantly, to weight or contact the index finger knuckle. Then, with shoulders above the elbows, move the shoulder blades toward the waist. And then lean slightly toward the hand side or block side so that you weight the forearms. So even though you'll hear me when I say to people, when they raise the knees and walk in, I'll say, bring your upper arm to the vertical. So press your shoulders away from your hands. But that's not the direction. If you go on pushing your shoulders away from your hands, you topple. So you have to weight the forearms. So first of all, forearms down, fingers spread, raise the knees, and then with your upper arm to the vertical, move the shoulders away from the ears. Raise one leg, and on the exhalation, go up. And although if you're fading, you have to push or lift the shoulders. And even though your feet slightly behind your hips, you extend up, lengthen the back leg. Okay, and down. And it's in these poses that you can have a significant effect on the outcome of the asana based on your expectation. If I expect to fall, then every time I tend to fall. So often for me, it's a question of I sit here in Vajrasana before I move. And I use this phrase, I cleanse the asana. And what I mean by that is I try not to embed all this expectation. What I'm about to do requires that I feel my body, that I establish a clear action, not mixed in motivation, nor full of the past, full of hopes or fears. Now we go again, this time palms facing in. And to do so, I place the block between the heel of the hand. It's not actually, if I put it in the palm, I tend to narrow my wrists. So I place it between the heel of the hand. I press the forearms down, Move the shoulders away from the ears. So bottom wrist bone firm. Lengthen the fingers. Then with your shoulders above your elbows, raise the knees, walk in, and exhale to go up. Hand variations in Shirsasana come from these inquiries. But at a deeper level, getting the actions is one thing, but adjusting your motivation, cleansing the asana of mixed motivation takes practice. Change. So now take a chair, set up for chair Viparita Dandasana. Now, if you don't have a chair, you could do cross bolsters. In the room with me, it's possible to do Viparita Dandasana on the wooden backbenders. And if you're in the room, you can take a chair. And if that chair comes out for use, it stays out. At the end of the class, we spray them and they stay. Now, just I say a pause, just an update. Next week, as of next week, there's going to be a slight shift and there'll be an early morning. We're going to reintroduce the mature group. One of the things that goes on in that class is certainly I won't be doing just this. I won't be in this view. When we do, we'll start using kickboards and a lot of the practice that we do in that group. I will change the way we use this online. So I'll move the camera. So next week I'll say set up for Viparita Dandasana or kickboards. And I'll move the camera to a different view where we've got maybe 4 people in view. The range of practice increases, but the way we use equipment requires that I have more than one view. And I am still working on this other stuff that I'm trying to get into place, but the simple way I can do it is next week on Monday mornings, this time slot, the mature group class, I'll be using a tripod and I'll actually get down and move it around the room. So when we set up and start doing, let's say, backbending and using equipment, some of it will be education, meaning learning how that equipment is used and what the alternatives are. So set up, step back through the chair. I fold a mat in 4 on the seat of the chair. Slide your buttocks through, and I'll use a toe loop. So make a very small loop of belt. I place that around the big toes. Slide the buttocks through, lie down. And then step the legs away. Elbows folded. And should you need a block for your head, a noodle to wrap around the neck, these are benga. These adjustments need to be learned and then applied as necessary. In these asanas, this one, it's harder to see motivation as a factor. You'll say to me that you're just here in the position. You're not doing anything. How can the asana be motivated if you're just lying here? But your sense of measure, of what it felt like yesterday, what you've done in the past, the teacher's instructions, those around you, these all establish a sense of measure. And that measure affects you. Maybe if yesterday you went much further, you carried that with you today. And yet what of today's asana? What of this one? We can tend to relate to asanas in terms of progress. And then sensations which seemingly limit or hinder progress, we find unpleasant. So when I ask you to hold the taste upon your tongue, just to sit with something, to be in it. A sensation versus an experience. A sensation exists in the tissue. The experience of that carries the past, the future, your ideals, your ideas. It carries motivation. Now, bring your hands back. Bend the knees, step in. Slide your buttocks onto the chair. Dig your elbows into the chair seat. Pull with the arms to come up. From here we go to Salamba Shirsasana, head balance. Should you need support nearby, move to the wall. And if you're not doing head balance, do cross bolsters. No. I think it will be simple leg variations this morning. Make your way to Salamba Shasasana 1. A beginner focuses on the actions. That is deliberate. We set them up, we give them a base, we consolidate, confirm. But that is the same in all fields. You have foundational techniques. They give you access to an asana. But the process of building up is one pathway. At some point, you've got your asana. And now what? Now what do you do? I think of throwing a stone. I see a place, a tin can in the distance. And I throw a stone trying to hit the can. And my stone goes a little to the left. So I throw another stone and I adjust a little. Or the stone falls short. And so I angle a little higher. The outcome is linked to what I do. And what I do can be adjusted. The trajectory of the stone changes based on what I do. And so it is with motivation. When I do these asanas, I often set up the pose. As you hear me describe, I sit in Vajrasana, I wait, I cleanse the asana of mixed motivation. So like the stone, I set the angle, the trajectory sends the stone either closer or further. And so every time you do an asana, you're not just recreating the past. You can adjust and adapt, and it's often very subtle. And your ability to get quiet and clear does affect what goes in and what is the outcome. Now, bend the knees to Baddha Konasana and Shasasana. Extend the legs to Upavista, toes pointing down as you reach out through the inner heels. Press out into the big toe mound. Raise the legs to Salamba Shirsasana. Then we turn to the right in Pajva Shirsasana. And when you turn, wrap the left hip forward, reach up along the left inner heel. But keep the right shoulder tip lifted, shoulder tip broad. Change. Left side. Again, change. Now split the legs, taking the left leg forward, the right leg back for Paramita Shirsasana. Then you turn to the right. The hips turn to the right, keep the right forearm down, the shoulder lifted, and reach back into the right inner heel as you press out into the left big toe mound. Change. Raise, change the cross of the legs. Extend back into the left inner heel and turn to the left. Change. Raise the legs. And then the right leg forward to Ekapada Shirsasana. Keeping the left leg long. Change. Left leg forward. When the left leg moves, keep the right leg stretching. Change. Now we go to Pajva Ekapada Shirsasana. Right heel to left instep, right leg to the side, on the diagonal, and then reach down. Change. Left heel to right instep, exhale to the side. And to inhale. And now make your way down. Press back in dog pose. Now, set up for, we're about to do Ardha Halasana for 5 minutes and then shoulder stand for 5 minutes. So I'll get a chair or box. If you have got a chair, I'd suggest you keep that. That's what you use. Whether roll, put a support on top of that. Could be a bolster. Could be cushion, roll of mat. So we're going to do 5 minutes in Ardha Halasana, followed by active shoulder stand. And it's a question, now we're doing a shortened version of this question, but to what degree does sequence change an asana? So often I'll get a person and I'll ask that for a week or 2 weeks. every day. You do shoulder stand followed by Ardha Halasana. And then the next day you do Ardha Halasana followed by shoulder stand. You just keep moving between the two. And at the end of your 2 weeks, what can you say? What can you tell me about the effects of shoulder stand on Halasana, Ardha Halasana, and does Ardha Halasana affect your shoulder stand? Does sequence change asanas? But the same is also true of motivation. If I do Ardha Halasana, get really quiet. If I let go completely in Ardha Halasana, does it change not just whether shoulder stand feels good, does it change shoulder stand? So go to Ardha Halasana, rest your legs, we do 5 minutes. To remain unmoving requires an intention to act. It is motivated. And motivation, like the stone, its trajectory can be changed. An experience, like where the stone falls, can never be totally assured. But motivation changes the experience. Now we go to shoulder stand. So you'll need to slide the chair away a little. Put the belt on, hands into the back body, you can go up. We use this phrase, study yourself in relation to an object. And yet the word study implies analysis. And yet each practice, you do study yourself. You bring with you your hopes, your fears. Your actions are motivated. And those actions play out into outcomes. The practice felt good. The practice felt bad. You achieved or you failed to achieve. But your analysis is of less significance. It is your experience, and over time, the breadth and depth of that experience by returning again and again. Like the throwing of a stone, you're either moving to one side of the object or the other, you're closer or further, and you can start to orientate yourself within the work. And now make your way down. Back to Halasana. Remove the belt and roll down. So we're about to do Janushasana in repetitions. We'll go 1 minute, 2 minutes, and 3 minutes. And even here, I choose this little sequence because I think it does reveal something. I repeat the asana, is it the same? I repeat the asana and I extend it in time. Am I the same? So roll to the side, come up, set yourself for forward bends. So left leg straight. Right knee open to the side. Now, first rotation will be 1 minute. Catch the outstretched leg. And go forward. The other image I sometimes use is lawn bowls. I watch these people and they stand at one end and they roll the ball. But the ball itself is not equal on all sides. It has a weight on one side, it's slightly oval. And so the line, the trajectory, and the outcome. And they're trying to get closest to this little white thing. Change. Not something I've ever done, or particularly that interested in, except that I think it reflects something of what we do. I set the pose. I define it. But then it unfolds into an outcome. And the experience of that outcome, of that asana, is not external to me. It holds me. It reflects me. And I can affect it. I don't necessarily control it, but I do have an effect. And what I put into the asana affects what comes out. And over time, these are the things that I start to adjust. Now we change. Now we go to 2 minutes. With left leg straight. Two minutes. And it's very subtle. Just as the bowler, whether dips one knee, whether rolls a little wider or closer, these come through experience, but all are factors. And a beginner cannot engage at that level. Their efforts are variable and their outcomes are haphazard. I set the pose, I define, but the line that I take inside the asana can only be seen by me. It is enacted by me. It is not the technique, although the technique exists. Whether I push or clench, these things both affect the outcome, but also reflect my motivation, my expectation. And sometimes the most significant thing you can do in an asana is to become intensely quiet. Just like the Ardha Halasana. What if stopping was the pathway to action, to clarity? What if letting go, in letting go, things changed? Change. Second side. This right leg straight, left knee bent. Two minutes. The world within. Change. Now we go to 3 minutes per side. Left leg straight. You cannot see someone's motivation, nor can you see their expectations. But you can adjust your own. Whether you move quickly, whether you're always pushing, whether you seek out stillness inside the asana. There are many things that you can do. And we all carry with us our own intention to act. But experiencing them, noticing them, looking into that motivation takes time. But it also needs to be an intention. And it doesn't happen overnight. And it doesn't happen analytically. I don't sit there thinking through, why did I do this and why did I do that? Because the explanations that you give yourself may be only that, just words and explanations. But if you go on practicing, it's said that you come to self-knowledge. You come to see things. And those things that you see about yourself are not thoughts. They're not ideas. They are just what they are. You've seen them. You've tasted them. You know them. Change. Last side. Now change. Go to Shavasana.
Any olives? Could you give me a
So once again, you might open your eyes. Previously, I've read another passage it's from Ladon Yoga Sutras, where it talks about, it's in the introduction, it's called the actions. It talks about the 4 types of actions: black, white, grey, and without attribute. But it all stands within a recognition that the world is not the world around us, but the world inside us. And how you live with yourself, how you understand yourself, and how you understand, how you act affects your inner world more so than the outer world.
I can't look very easy. No, I need to. I think,
And yet the world within us is challenging, confusing. I think Iyengar did an extraordinary thing when he decided to focus on asana as a means to investigate these questions. Because for us, standing now in this modern age, most people think of yoga, when they think of yoga, they think of asanas.
Yeah.
And I think most of that can largely be attributed to him.
Well,
If not directly, then indirectly. And often through the group of people that he influenced, and then their diversity.
Where?
And some of them completely moved away from Iyengar, and yet in some ways still defined by the very principles and concepts.
You'd have to do a bit of research, I see.
Helen, it's hard to hear you because Minnie's accidentally got her microphone on.
For it to be yoga, it needs to be involved in these questions. It does not need to be asana. And yet what he did was he said, you can think all you like, but when you practice, what do you experience? And so he put the practice at the center of the learning paradigm. And what you think and what analysis you have, these things can vary. And maybe you think one thing today and next week you think another, but the practice goes on. And it's generally argued that yoga is not a belief system, but a revealed system. It comes, its knowledge base, what it has to say comes via the practice. So now roll to the, bend your knees, roll to the side. And then we finish there.